Jen was over there,
A lot of people.
land trust.
See that many people. That woman who was with us in the elevator, that woman in the elevator with us, she was looking for charter revision. We're doing another charter revision?
It's not coming, so it's gonna be one after six.
I mean, you know, that perks my
Yeah, right.
ears up when they start fooling around with that.
I know. Hello, Pamela. Good.
You know what it is? That's what it is. So there's always a sign on the door.
So, what did that do? That's a nice healthy.
How you been?
Good.
They probably just have their annual.
Enjoying the weather?
Oh, I see.
And so they reserve.
Yeah, I see.
Snow,
Yeah.
getting things done, it's not raining that much.
What are we looking at here? This is,
Well, today would have been nice for a little sprinkle.
the head of, ZBA is in here on a,
You guys are meeting on the 5-year drawdown.
Yes.
I think Kevin put
Saw
that
that
wording
paper.
perfectly.
Was it in the paper? Oh, no.
Spring.
Yeah. I got nothing better to do, I read the paper now.
But he-
Hey, fellas, we're live, just because I had a reporter call and make sure that so that there'd be no glitches, so I'm just
So we're live.
letting you know that we're live streaming to YouTube and all that.
Yippee.
Can I ask an official question?
Official.
I'm replacing my fence around my pool,
Yeah,
so I have to get a permit?
supposed to
How
get a
much?
zoning
Okay, I will.
permit. It's $100.
I don't care. I don't want to read my
Sorry.
name in the paper.
Yeah. What? There's no names in the paper.
Huh?
There's no names.
For a violation. Pete Marchand is not gonna be here today.
Is it, did you permit the pool originally?
I put that pool in before permits were around. That pool went in 78. Fence went in, this is probably the second or third fence I put up.
Hopefully.
And I've never had to get a permit. Every time I went down, Scott would say, nah, you don't have to. I mean, I put a fence around the tennis court, no, you don't have to have a permit for that.
A lot of people don't take every permit they ought to take.
So I just don't wanna, being on the commission, I don't wanna
Well, you know,
open myself to
it
undue
would,
criticism.
it would be considered grandfathered for where it is, even if it doesn't meet.
It's not changing the size,
It's going in the exact same location.
exact same,
So, let
half
me,
the posts are still good.
let me
for-
check on that, like if if it doesn't require, like a porch,
No porch.
yeah, but
We're
say.
only gonna do half of
I
it
know,
this
so
year
I'm
right
just
now.
giving an example, when a porch that requires a building permit is going exact same size, exact same location, you write that on the building permit and no zoning permit is necessary. Because it's
you're not-
grandfathered, whether
yeah.
it meets,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah, well, that fence went in, I'm 79 years old. That fence went in 19 years ago. Because my wife had a surprise party for me for my 50th, when that fence went in,
60th.
50th.
60th, if it went in 19 years ago.
You mean she had a party for people to put a fence in for you? That's nice.
You
Good to go, Ruth.
put a party in for anybody, put a fence over me.
So you're not putting in the fence thinking you're getting a party next year.
I'm
You
done,
never know.
I'm done counting.
He's prepping for that, just in case he wants to get
Yeah,
that.
he set the stage, right?
Right.
You know John Bowman?
What's that?
You know John Bowman?
I do know John Thomas. John was probably the attorney I worked most closely with.
Johnny and I have been together for 50 some odd years.
Okay.
When he first came out of the Army, and I started my company, he was my attorney.
Yeah.
Has been ever since.
Well, he's more or less retired.
I know.
Just retired.
We're still good friends.
Thank you.
My first year at Commonwealth, we tried tried 3 cases together. So I learned more from him than anybody else at the firm.
He did a lot of big real estate stuff,
Yeah.
big stuff. Yeah, he's been good to me. We've been good friends.
His business is in Bridgeport,
Oh, okay.
so he drives.
Pardon?
I didn't know your business was in Bridgeport.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I served that there.
How you did that drive every day, yeah.
Burned out a Mercedes every 2 years.
Thank you.
Half the people are working hard. I could not do that ride.
Yeah.
I at least get on Route 8. I'm doing 70, 75, sometimes 80. All the way down to Waterbury. From Waterbury to, you start picking up, through Seymour, Shelton. Only in the new days. In the old days, you really didn't. If you had bad weather, it could be, I've taken 4 hours to get out of Bridgeport. So, I've spent many a night at the hotel down on Fairfield Avenue. Just the hell with it, it's not worth fighting it. So,
I prefer this drive to going to Stanford.
yes.
Oh,
In
yeah.
Fairfield County. So this
95 is terrible.
I like the route. It's not bad.
Route 8 is great, I mean, with few exceptions. A lot of cops, but if you keep it at a reasonable speed and don't jerk around, they don't. I knew them all on a first-name basis when I was driving every day.
Well, 75, 80, I think you might.
Yeah, right.
Those are the days.
I think it's 55 down in Naugatuck, isn't it? Like,
Pardon?
isn't there a stretch?
It
like-
is.
Yeah, in the
Right?
Ho Chi Minh-
I'll take
the old-
it
We
down
call it the
there.
Ho Chi Minh
Right.
Trail. That's all 55.
I was in a dump truck and I got pulled over by the DOT for going 70 and a 55, and I'm like, it's 65, it was just a little over. He goes,
Yeah.
no, it's 55.
You don't see it too many
I'm like, are you
areas.
kidding me?
Right.
Oopsie.
Whoops.
Is this true?
Which way were you going, north or south?
North, I was coming home.
No, that's why they caught you. Going south, they don't catch you.
He goes, I would never see anybody drive a dump truck that fast. I said, I've been driving for 35 years, I got a lot of experience.
You haven't?
I probably,
And he goes, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna let you go
It never
if
came up
everything
before?
comes back clean.
You
And I
know
said,
that
I
it's a big
have no
issue?
speeding tickets,
The
nothing.
float
Run my
thing never
license.
came up
So he
in all
did, he
the
comes
years?
back and he goes, your medical card's not up to date. I go, yes it is, I just gave you the thing, I just got it done a couple of weeks ago. He goes, well, it's not showing up on a computer. I said, well, I got the hard copy. He goes, okay, you're good.
Is this true?
I was like,
This is brand new.
That's
You
like,
saw
that's
that
reckless
old-
driving in a dump truck, that's bad.
If you saw that before Route 8 is what it is
Yeah,
now,
I don't
when
know.
that was
I
going
don't know what was
along the
before
ledge.
Because I started.
That
when
was,
I don't know.
when I first started, I had a little Mustang
Oh, that's,
convertible. And that was, I used to run that thing through there at, oh, that was beautiful.
You know?
But right at the end, there was a way station,
Would you
Yeah.
know?
and the cops used to be sitting there with radar popping.
No, George, Craig and George.
yeah, we've been here.
Terrible how they do those things to us.
I gotta like have a
Take all the fun
confirmation
out
of
of it.
that. Unless it's a new regulation. No, I think it just didn't.
Good evening.
How's everybody tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good.
We didn't see raises for our committee in the new budget.
It just didn't
We
get
got
touched.
sent the last minute.
Yeah.
Oh, is that it?
It
Oh.
was there before that.
We had great expectations.
See, and the way all of the previous versions are online. So if you're home and you ever want to look at previous versions, they're all,
Well, he's, making this argument tonight, so
Yeah.
I didn't see this. I'm sorry. That was my fault. I just read Kevin's thing.
How's the water quality so far this year?
just so you can see
Has it?
that when you go
Yeah,
to.
I have a
Yeah, I
couple
saw
ponds
it.
on my property. They're the cleanest we've seen in many years. I have aerators on it, but man, I just,
That's the version that has like.
Usually by this time,
It
we've
doesn't
had a
matter,
couple
what
hot
I'm
days, we
saying
start
is it
getting.
didn't exist,
Yeah.
nothing. It
We
was
have a lot of
slower.
problems.
Right,
Just-
so
Yeah,
I'd
that
rather
one
go
got
to
it
this
fixed, you know.
Okay.
the one
That's
right
the whole-
before.
I'm
Correct.
just from
And,
that statement.
That's,
Been a lot of particles. I haven't
What's the
seen
number?
anything
Close to the
alarming.
same number, right?
No, because it was totally.
Shocked, I went out, closed
Yeah,
my,
like
I
there
drove
is,
out in
so
my Easy Go.
whatever it is.
Let's see.
Jeez. Usually I start to see the
The algae?
One.
Alex coming, it grows on the surface, it's a duck foil.
Oh, okay.
Duck foil from the Canadian
going.
geese. My wife feeds it, so we have like 30 or 40 of them.
Would it be in that first general thing?
Yeah, that's what
Should you
I
keep 'em up
wanna see.
there?
Let's see, anything about Saps landscaping?
They come from all over. Well, we get the same families every year, 4 or 5.
This thing
Every
has,
single year.
have been here for decades.
We had 7, 5, 6, 2 babies.
Oh, that's bizarre to me then.
We just watched the attrition
What's
rates,
the argument
horrific.
we're making?
Oh, yeah.
The 7 ends up at around 4.
Oh,
The 2, I don't know, they're still 2. But
Let's look at 8.6.
pulled out the old wagon that I brought that Lady Gray, remember, to the,
yeah,
down at,
yeah.
I used that to haul stuff behind my stuff, I put the stuff in it.
Yeah. Oh my, so it's,
4, we get a quarter.
Look at this blueprint.
You want to, or did I?
This is the.
Not yet.
Show me where that garage is on.
I'm not gonna ask him if he can.
But I mean, he, you know, that's. Replacement, like, that's a lot.
What's up, ladies?
Just looking
Oh,
up
wait.
something.
Supposed to be
How you
the
doing?
road. Oh,
That's my fault, I should've gotten this
here, but they
earlier.
didn't put it on the map.
So it's not just me. I'm pretty good. You know.
Yeah, no, that's, because I did read the thing and it was supposed to be on the front off there.
That much?
Very first sentence,
How you
it
doing?
says that this is a brand new regulation.
This
It's
one, oh,
so
duh.
thing that didn't exist before
You go.
2016.
Do you go?
Back to the drawing board.
I don't
I,
know.
I don't even see.
good?
Because everybody,
Because that was the whole basis of how we were in the country. Get a lot of stuff from that.
Right.
No, states that
the
know.
entire history of this.
Yeah, the weather, wasn't it supposed to rain
Great
today?
thing, and
Oh, I thought it was.
it either has or it
I'll
hasn't,
make
so
it.
if he says it
I've been
hasn't.
waiting for rain, I don't know why. Saturday, I thought it was gonna rain.
That's why we put it in there. Needs rain.
No, I understand, but that's just a little bit, we were talking like, it's always been that way,
Yeah, 'cause
and
I mean-
he says it isn't, so I was asking.
pretty sure
you're
that's where it's
to,
going,
no.
right? Existing house.
I mean, that's all I could find, so, you know, for,
Yeah, okay.
Pam, did you hear anything from Janice?
no,
Over here.
I haven't.
Flowers, that's a deck. Under deck, shed. Boat lift, yeah, it's supposed to be up here somewhere. Neither do I.
George, I see a lot of emails
Yeah.
going back and forth from you to set up the all board meeting. No responses.
Well, I put it out this afternoon, so.
No, you did one like a week or two ago.
Yeah, I did.
And it was nothing,
Yeah.
unless they responded just to you.
Engineer.
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Yeah, but I heard from Paul Marino and
Vertical garage layout.
from the ZBA, so that's why I put down the 30th. My wife's got surgery going on next week.
Hopefully nothing too serious. Oh, that's easy.
Still,
Right. I actually just talked yesterday with somebody that had it. It's like 3 days later, after wearing sunglasses, it was perfect.
yeah, it's shorter than what I had it done, but
the technology nowadays.
There's a couple of steps in
Crazy.
the deck too.
Every day gets better and better.
Deck's portion of
Right,
house
right.
landscape.
All right, I've got 7 o'clock now. That lens is a little different, but, so we'll call the meeting, the June 13th meeting to order. And roll call, I'm the chairman, George Clausen, Craig Sandin. Peter Marchand is absent excused. Willie Platt over to my left. Troy Lemire is an alternate, Charlene Lavoie, and Felix Beiner. We haven't heard from John Cooney, so he usually walks in shortly.
Yeah.
So we have any public comment? We got a full house tonight. Anything on the agenda review part of it? Anybody have anything? No. All right, well, Peter Marchand is out because he's having some testing done, medical. So I'd like to seat Troy in his spot. And Charlene, do you want to sit for John if he doesn't show up, please?
Okay.
All right. Do we have anything under other business, Pam?
No.
No, okay. So number 5 is public hearing zoning regulation change. This is PZC 22-3. Applicant owner Stephen Heffer and Hina Sultan. Proposal modification of section 3D 5 small c of zoning regulations of generally applicable development regulations, steep slope regulations. And in our packet, we've got some additional information from the applicant. So has everybody got an opportunity to read this?
And just for the record, when you say additional information, you're talking about a memorandum in support of proposed amendment to you folks, Winchester Planning and Zoning, from Philip Perez, Esquire of Cohen and Wolf, dated June 6, 2022. And then the commission was also provided via email, and as was Attorney Perez, with a requested opinion from the town's legal counsel, Attorney Kevin Nelligan. That letter has also been printed for anyone who didn't maybe get it through email today. That's dated June 13th to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, let's, first of all, did you receive the
Yes, I did.
Kevin? And here comes John. So we'll pull you off.
Not a problem.
Okay, we've got. Hey, John.
Thank you.
All right. So John Cooney just came in and will be seated as a regular performer here with the commission. We just to introduce this, John. This is the memorandum that we got from the attorney in front of us.
Okay.
With regards to this. It was June 6th. And do you have any comments with the June 13th from Kevin Nelligan?
Do I make, no, I don't disagree with what he's saying in general.
Yeah.
There are two different processes that the town can have. The town can let it go by variance, and there's no guarantee that the ZBA attaches conditions, or it can do it by way of a special permit. And the only thing I'll add is he references that if section 4J is met, then the commission, well, it says if satisfied the criteria of, the commission would lack discretion to deny special permit application. The other item we would add is, it would also have to satisfy the condition of this amended regulation that requires sediment erosion controls, other things to make sure that there are adequate safeguards in place. So it would have to be both that would be established to the satisfaction of this commission, which is a very different process than the ZBA variance process, where there is no
Okay.
criteria that's in place.
Okay. And we've all received this June 6th piece that you, I guess it's 5 pages, that you have added more information to us. Is Does anybody have any questions with regards to that?
The only question I have, George, is that, I mean, if it meets the criteria, what is the criteria for, slopes in 25%? Do we have that in our zoning regulations already? Or is it something that we're gonna have to rewrite to put this?
It's part of the text amendment, like it addresses that it would have to include stormwater, drainage.
Right, but I mean, is this something that we have to draft also, like requirements for that?
That language written in red gets put into the regs. It was part of the application, it would,
Okay.
So how you interpret the language would be up to you as the commission. But the language on what would be required is in the proposed amendment. It's adequate erosion control and drainage measures shall be put in place to avoid erosion and sedimentation during or after construction, and all erosion control and stormwater management measures shall comply with all applicable laws and guidelines, and adequate measures to minimize the clear cutting of trees or the clearing of shrubs and other natural vegetation. But it would be up to this body to interpret that, what's adequate.
That's my only question, because I mean, I understand what this is all about. I'm wondering why someone would hire a lawyer to do that for them, but I'm just, you know, criteria is that's the catchword. So we either rely on ZBA to agree or not agree to give them a pass, or we take control of it, but then that guarantees that we have to allow development on a am I getting that correctly?
True.
Okay.
True.
except remember, there's criteria within the zoning regulations that are applicable to every special permit. So you would weigh it against, the language here under this particular steep slope regulation, and you would additionally be weighing it against the criteria of just special permits generally that allow the commission discretion.
Okay.
Do you have any?
Comments on general?
Yes.
Or on this, on the text?
On
I
the-
have comments in general.
Let them fly.
All right. I have a lot of them. So, the Steep Slope Act, would that prohibit future mining operations? Because they're taking out the side of a mountain steeper than 25%. I see projects that have come through town that have potentially been over 25%. The health center, I believe part of that was. The project down on Old Route 8, proposed industrial park, they took a whole mountain out in there. So, obviously, you can work with 25%, over 25%. What bothers me the most is the soil and erosion control. We've all seen those measures overwhelmed after a rainstorm, and they sit there and sit there and sit there. I think there should be a bond on the erosion control. After a rain event, 24 or 36, whatever hours is determined, it needs to be corrected. It shouldn't be up to our enforcement officer to go and cite them to correct it. They should do it, and if they don't do it, they lose a bond and cease and desist until they produce another bond.
Okay.
Because we're allowing it something that's potentially hazardous to the environment, dangerous to the environment.
Especially at the lake.
Especially at the lake. We saw the evidence when the Sucker Brook,
Yes.
dry dam blew out there. So, if we're gonna, and it seems to me like we probably are going to allow it because it's the only way of getting controls. We need to put a bond on it, just so after the event, they go out. If it's not dealt with, they lose the bond. And it should be significant, should hurt. That way the owner has some skin in the game to make sure those erosion fences stay up. And then, I mean, this ordinance doesn't seem like it deals with the driveways. Because there's a thing on driveways over 25%. It doesn't do with lot coverage, which you can't count anything over 25% for lot coverage. So, does it accomplish what they want? Evidently it does, so. I'm just really worried about the erosion.
So with, I think what you're referring to in terms of you can't count 25% in lot coverage, that's when trying to establish a size of a lot. So when you're subdividing a piece and, you know, the minimum lot size is 2 acres, well, in those 2 acres, say you have a 20-acre piece, you can't include the area of land that's in excess of 25%.
Right, so you can't include that in your percentage of
when,
coverage.
when trying to break up your lots.
Yeah, what about when you're developing it?
It wouldn't, with this, it wouldn't prohibit development.
So,
But would it enable them to get around that, though? With this,
It would enable development on
because that,
on
I mean,
sites with slopes of excess of 25% with a special permit.
If it is an existing lot. So if you have some piece that is not historically, that establishes a lot, doesn't create zoning, or those types of zoning restrictions, then that would not be, this doesn't open that type of property up. I mean, you know, just as, you know, if the property is a lot already, then those requirements about how you form a lot don't apply. On the bond comment's very good. I think I don't know how you're going to interpret it, but the way I read section 7 of your special permit regulations is that it gives you discretion to impose additional conditions, and I don't see why that couldn't include a bond, if you guys deem it to be appropriate on a particular application.
and I think the applicant coming forth needs to know that that's going to be imposed. So they don't get here and get surprised and say, oh my God. I think they need to know that there's gonna be a number attached to it, and they're gonna forfeit it if they, within a reasonable set of time, if they don't fix their erosion control.
So your special permit regulation, the general one, that Attorney Donovan cites, it's J7. Commission may stipulate such conditions as are reasonable and necessary to protect or promote public health, safety, or welfare, property values, the environment, sound planning and zoning principles, improve land use, site planning and land development, and better overall neighborhood compatibility.
That allows a lot of,
A lot of discretion to
Right.
impose additional conditions.
But your point is that it should be specifically involved in this because you're going into a higher slope area.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
In this, it's on the paper that it's not
And we
something.
heard testimony during the last public hearing from Jen about silt fences that are overwhelmed and Michael can't keep up with it.
Sure.
So there's no penalty to the owners if it gets overwhelmed.
Right.
And if we're gonna allow it on a 25% slope, which is significant, and it gets overwhelmed, there needs to be some penalty involved.
No, I think it's a good point.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody on the commission, while it's open hearing, we can all have a conversation about it. So if you have something to contribute, your thoughts, John?
No, I agree
That was a good suggestion.
with what Bill said.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, this is a completely about face from where the commission was last time, which was that they didn't want to allow, they wanted to keep intact the 25% slope thing. Okay, I'm probably not as familiar with the slope issues to delve any more than that into it, but I listened to you all last time and I was persuaded that this was a good regulation. Okay, you all will make that decision otherwise, but I don't know what changed your minds on that. Second, have a general issue about letting others amend these planning and zoning regs without the input of this body, our town attorney, and the public, which is how we, meaning this commission, amended these regulations every time they're amended, over and over and over, including the large one that was done in 2016. This commission did it, was reviewed by not only Kevin, I think didn't you have a lawyer,
we
a
did.
land use
Yes.
lawyer?
Yes, we did.
And the public was involved. Now, this comes before this commission from an applicant who's got obviously is gonna be coming from a position of interest. And it may be completely legitimate, and it may be all that he says it is, and I don't think Kevin went into that much depth of analysis. He's giving us the general difference between planning and zoning regulations, special permit, and ZBA regulations. I just have the general thing. If we want to do that, and we want to move into this area and clarify it or change it, I think that this commission should do that, but not take it on this application. Do it on its own.
Charlene, I'm with you on that because last month or last meeting, I was totally against removing that. And the only thing that, and I'm going to explain to you why I changed my mind. And the only thing that came out to me is I don't have faith in the ZBA of protecting our,
Yeah.
skin in the game
And
on
I
the
understand that's an
slope, so-
issue, and maybe that could be dealt with in some other way also.
Right.
But, again, I don't think maybe just this action right now is the way to solve that problem, this problem, and their problem even. So, I think, you don't just willy-nilly change, amend, these are laws, these are the land use laws of the community, but.
Again, though, the problem is that if we don't do something, it can be done without
Well,
going through us.
We don't
And I'd
know
rather have
that.
it-
I mean, we don't know how ZBA will react to it if they,
Well, I asked that question and it's been 99.9% in favor, so that's why I'm more apt to give us the power back on that. And then through special permit, we can do conditions, which, I mean, we can do a lot there. So that's the only thing to change my mind.
I was against it also until I read Kevin Elligan's opinion, and then I got thinking about what are the repercussions and how do we put conditions on it? Because we're able to put conditions on going forward. And, because I was really against it. And so now it's like, okay, chances are we would lose with ZBA, 50-50 shot. So why don't we put the conditions on it
That's-
that make it
yeah,
binding?
yeah. That's a pretty sad statement. We're saying another land use commission is like a total waste of time in protecting the land use of the
Well,
community
we
by
don't
saying,
know- we don't
we
know
gotta
how-
take it, because otherwise they're gonna blow it.
We don't know how they're gonna react, but at least we know if we do it, that it would
But
have these
it
conditions.
isn't, we don't have that level of discretion, and that's clear also from Kevin's thing, which is that you gotta bet, they're gonna get that special permit, and they're gonna do it, and maybe they will, and maybe they won't, maybe it'll cost them to not comply with the conditions, but there are ways, come on, Willie, you've been around a long time, there's ways around everything, and I'm not saying these applicants would do that, but I don't see that as a fundamentally persuasive argument for doing it tonight in this form, but that's up to you.
But
Will.
that's why we're having a public hearing, so that the community has an opportunity to participate in,
True, but, I mean, this is a change not just for this applicant, this is a change
true.
for everybody,
that's right, exactly.
so,
Majority of the topography in Winchester
yeah,
falls into that.
Exactly.
Whole
So-
East Wakefield Boulevard,
you know,
half of Platt Hill.
with the stroke of their pen, it's gonna change
I'm
everything,
fully cognizant of that.
so,
I'm not, I concur with what you're thinking, but I also think that a lot of the land that's viable for development is fraught with 25-degree slopes. And as you well know, I fought the the other one, where and part of that was getting that 25 degree, those 25% slopes removed from their usable land. And it was meaningful. So I think it's important that we not lose control of that. And the lake, everywhere on the lake, unfortunately, I mean,
But what you're
it's
referring,
valid.
what you're
It's a
referring
valley. I
to,
mean,
Craig,
pardon?
wouldn't change. That wouldn't, like, the language that was added for referring to a proposed subdivision that included lots that had slopes of 25%. So say, like, again, to the example, if, you know, you had 100 acres and you wanted 52-acre lots, well, the portion of the property that is in excess of 25% is taken off the gross. And it's the remaining land with slope less than 25% that you can use for your planned development.
But my point, I think,
And that wouldn't change with this.
I think I obliterated my point, but my point is that I think the topography of Winchester as a whole contains a tremendous amount of steep slope in all aspects, not just Platte Hill, not just the lake. I mean, my own property, I could take you out in the back and, I mean, I've got 100-degree slopes. And I think it's something we gotta think about because it has a tremendous impact upon the land beneath it. And everything in Winchester's going down to the lake. Everything, you know? I'm not trying to, but I think it's a reality that I like the idea of the bonding, but who the hell enforces anything in this town?
That's I mean, that is a sad commentary. If we're
Well,
all
I'm
sitting
just
here
saying,
saying
it's just-
ZBA isn't gonna do its job, so we've gotta
I'm not
adopt
trying
the
to make it a
regulation from
commentary.
an applicant to make it, you know, to prevent something very bad from happening. We're saying ZBA can't handle it, so we've gotta change it, and we gotta take an applicant's, instead of saying, we'll do it, we'll consider it and make a new regulation. I am newer on the commission, I don't get that, but.
Sometimes you gotta improvise.
You gotta look at it this way, ZBA is in charge of granting a special permit, right, or whatever.
variance.
A variance, I mean. So-
Only
so
under
their job
hardship.
ends there. You see what I'm saying? If it goes through planning and zoning, now we have a zoning officer that can go out there and works for us to monitor what's going on. It's a little bit more skin in the game, as like Will said, I think. That's the only thing that persuaded me on that one.
Okay, we can talk about the negotiations, so forth. Anybody in the audience like to make a comment or question with regards to this application? No. Does the commission, do you feel we've got enough information to deal with this? All right, so we could,
I'll make a motion to
Close the
close the
public
public hearing.
Second.
seconded by Troy. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion? Okay, so it's closed. All right, so we'll act on this shortly.
Thank you.
All right. The next public hearing is PZC 22-4. Commission initiated zoning regulation change proposal, add cannabis establishments as use permitted through special permit in town center, town gateway, and production innovation zones. Pam, can you just tell us about the,
Yep, so
Presentation.
I'll just read the legal notice into the record. Notice is hereby given that the Winchester Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Monday, June 13th, 2022, at 7 PM in the P. Francis Sixth Room of Town Hall, 338 Main Street, Winston, for the following applications. Town of Winchester Commission initiated, discuss and consider adoption of changes to zoning regulations. At this hearing, a presentation will be given on the changes to the regulations. Interested persons are invited to appear and be heard, and written communications will be received on the proposed document. Copies of this document is on file for public inspection in the town clerk's office and online at www.townofwinchester.org. On the Planning and Zoning Commission page, under Town Boards and Commission heading, call the Planning and Community Development Office at 860-738-6593 for more information. Dated at Winchester, Connecticut, the second day of May 2022, George Glassman, Chairman. It ran in the Republican American on May 30th and June 6th, 2022. All of the notices were sent to the 6 abutting towns as required by statute via certified mail. It was sent to the COG, who had no conflict with the Regional Plan of Conservation and Development. You had begun discussing this. I've had this up on the town website with every version and iteration of the different variations, all of the items you've discussed this, I want to say, at no fewer than 6 meetings. And everything has been uploaded to the town's website for public inspection for well over a month. Comprehensively, I haven't touched the website since May 2nd, so it's been there for a good 5-6 weeks.
Okay. And none of the communities that have been notified, do you have any response?
No, feedback, no. I've had several inquiries from attorneys representing prospective developers looking to do this type of use. I haven't received many questions from the public beyond that.
Okay, all right. And let's establish a motion, put a motion out there to open the public hearing, please.
I make a motion to open the public hearing for
22-4.
22-4, thank you, I've got the wrong page.
I'll second it.
And it's seconded. Any discussion of the motion? All in favor? All right. We've got people here in the audience. Has anybody not seen and read any of the details that we have on this? You haven't. Do we have any extra copies of this?
If you don't, take mine. I know it.
This is the proposed regulation and a proposed, the definitions that are being discussed as added. I'm not sure that the record picked it up. What is provided and discussed is a copy of a new regulation dealing with retail cannabis, as well as changes to the definitions section of the zoning regulations to define some of the terms used. And it is being proposed as being added to the town center zone, the town gateway zone, and production innovation zone.
But there were restrictions on the town center.
Which it's language contained within the regulation.
Okay. So, if everybody's had an opportunity to read this, is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment or discuss the proposal? Yes.
We don't have.
Brian Sundy, 152 Spencer Hill Road. I have not had a chance to review the document. Really, I'm going by the story from the Registered Citizen a couple weeks ago. I've been to the Board of Selectmen meeting a couple times just to sort of state my objection to commercialization and retail sale of marijuana in Winston. I'm here tonight to do the same thing for pretty simple reasons. I just worry about the impact on the town's residents and children in particular. I feel like we have enough problems in town. It's one more thing we don't need. When I read the story recently, tonight that perhaps, or at least what was reported in the story, that the idea of putting it in the town center may be in conflict with what the Board of Selectmen discussed. I thought maybe they said outside of the town center, and sort of segregated this type of activity toward the outside of town. I remain concerned about it all, and particularly in the downtown corridor where, you know, kids are walking through all the time. So, I just wanted to go over that.
It has been, Board of Selectmen recommended that we exclude from the park on the east side to the church, I guess, is on the west end. So that whole center area has been excluded from that, within that town center.
But the special, what's on the agenda though, but are you allowing it by special permit? So is that?
Not in that area.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm still just concerned about the topic overall.
Okay.
So I just want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for the record, Mr. Sunday, your address?
152 Spencer Hill Road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience like to make comments or questions about this proposal? Okay. So while we've got an open public hearing, any questions that you want to raise with regards to this? We have. So if we don't have any other information we were looking to expand upon, we can take a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Before you do that, I'm sorry, before it gets a second, as I recall, this hasn't received legal review yet, and I thought you had intended to carry it for two meetings. It need not, but if, you know, there should be some type of conflicting language in it, there has been no legal review.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, I just have one follow-up procedural question. Maybe you can answer, maybe you can't. At some point, does this panel decision go back to the Board of Selectmen for an up or down vote, or this is
No.
it? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Ma'am?
Well, my questions are related to that. I was here for a different matter, and as far as public speaking, or I would have the opportunity to talk to the board before the end of the night.
Do you have something that
On
you?
another matter?
Not with that.
Not with this? We can talk about it after we get finished with this.
Okay.
So Pam, you're seeing this as we continue the public hearing?
If you want a legal review, otherwise, if Attorney Nelligan or Attorney Brands, whoever we're gonna have look at it, were to find some, you know, problem with it, we, you know, procedurally, I think we would have to do it again.
Okay, all right. Then we could leave this still open, continue it to the next meeting, but let's specifically request that from our town attorney.
For the June 27th meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
So, all right, is that okay with everyone?
Yep.
All right. And let's, a motion to continue the public hearing until the 27th.
I'll make a motion to continue PCZ 22-4 to our next meeting.
Okay. Do we have a second? Craig, second. Any discussion of the motion? All in favor? Okay, done. So we'll continue to the 27th, so we'll have something else with regards to this. Okay, the next item on the agenda is, number 6 is PZC 22-3, zoning regulation change, which we just earlier closed the public hearing on. This is a proposal modification of section 3D 5 small c of zoning regulations, other generally applicable development regulations, steep slope regulations. So this has been, obviously, we went through it, closed the public hearing. This is the continuation of what we did a couple of weeks ago. So the 5 seated members,
Oh, I can't say anything?
no, that's, we stopped the public hearing.
We're gonna write a note.
All right, any comments about, I mean, what we've talked about here, with the discussion about putting a additional regulation in there with regards to the bonding? But that discussion requires a lot more than just saying bonding. We've got to get,
Gotta get figures and.
yeah. Because you just throw in bonding is required, I mean, that we can do that anyways on the special permit process, because there's plenty of things that we've got that we consider and we make a decision with. But your point, it should be very clear with regards to this, because we're in a higher sloped area, that it's definitely gonna be a requirement. But I think there's gotta be a little more detail to it than just putting bonding. And you discussed the importance of the level that it should reach. So that at a failure of some of their, you know, the equipment and things that have been put in to protect the slope from a washout, how is it gonna function? How is the bonding gonna be interpreted and enforced? Because it's gotta be pretty prompt. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, are you meaning like putting in extra silt fence?
Well, no, I
Or
think
just
that-
how to determine if it failed?
Yeah, well, you know if it failed.
I mean, if it failed, then it's, obviously it's failed, and if they haven't fixed it within a time frame, which I don't know what hours it should be 24, 36, or 48, but a short time frame, if it's not fixed, then there should be consequences. I mean, yes, if it's a significant rain event,
Yeah.
it could actually get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So,
And sometimes they're back to back, so that's why the 24-hour thing comes in,
yeah, it should be a short,
because I've seen that happen before.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're gonna go down this road, then it should be a short period of time. It shouldn't be, a week to fix it. Because some of these silt fences, they get notified, and then they gotta get the contractor out, and he's gotta get time frame. So, they sit there for weeks overwhelmed. Multiple storms, and it goes over the top. So, it needs to be, I don't know how to say anymore.
And then what do you do? Make our town crew go out there and put the sediment up to fix it? Just by taking the money is not gonna fix the problem that it caused to begin with either. So the whole point behind a bond is for the town to recoup the money when they have to do the work themselves. That's what it's for.
Sure.
Like we bond driveways, and if the person doesn't do their driveway, we bond it $750. I got a guy goes out there, charges me $750. I'm paid for it. Doesn't cost me nothing. That's what the bond thing's for.
Yeah.
But in case of a catastrophe with a rainstorm, you got 24 hours. Now, who's gonna fix it? Are we gonna make the town crew go out there? Can they do that? Private property? You
Well,
know,
if it's, when I said significant,
Yeah.
I didn't mean $750. I meant
Oh, no, I'm just
$5,000,
making it-
$10,000.
yeah,
I meant
right.
significant.
Yeah.
That way, they have skin in the game.
Sure.
They
Right.
know if this is allowed to go over or it's getting close, they're gonna lose some money.
I wasn't, I was just using that as an
Yeah,
example.
okay.
My thing was, it still doesn't fix the problem, even if the person, if we make it $10,000, and the people lose $10,000 in 24 hours because they didn't fix the silt fence. Well, the problem is, all that stuff is still going into the lake.
Right. Right.
That's my issue with this whole thing.
Sure.
Yeah, but then you can use, oh, I can't say.
No, you and I are over here in,
Been there, buddy, don't worry. It's hard, isn't it?
yeah, really. Not my natural state. being quiet.
Do you guys understand what I'm saying? I mean, it's,
Yeah.
that's what I'm more worried
It's a
about.
slippery slope. I mean,
Right. So how do we fix that part of the regulations?
I was against this until I read Kevin's opinion. And then I changed. I was actually preparing arguments at home on definitions of language and all that, and researching other towns. And then Kevin's opinion made me think differently about this. So if we can get overruled, possibly by another board, then we need to figure out how to deal with that.
Sure. That's my point, exactly.
Okay. I think we gotta do a little more homework on this bond issue, rather than make a decision tonight, frankly. But it's something we need to really put some hard thought into it, because I think you're right, as far as this, if we're gonna do something like this, we've gotta make sure
We
we've
gotta
got
make sure we're doing it right. And then the other part of this that I came across by reading different towns is percentage of slope that was created by a project. We don't, as far as I know, I can't find any regulation on slope creation. Now, I know the health center, they created a slope there that failed, and I was new here then, and they came back in to put some riprap on the slope. So obviously that slope was too steep. So, if we're gonna allow this construction on over 25%, maybe we need to look at the slope that they create doing this. So they don't create too steep of a slope. And if it was me, I would reduce the slope, I wouldn't create more, but.
Sometimes in the building envelope, you need to dig into the hill as much as you can to get a backyard or whatever,
Yeah,
you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? And then you're creating
True.
a slope. And like Greg said, I mean, most of the stuff that's left in Winston and Winchester right now, I mean, they were pretty much built up on everything that's usable, so.
I mean, there's a lot.
Right.
There's a lot. I mean, you just, I think it's, goes back to the old Pandora's box. I mean, we're opening something. For the moment, we've sort of precluded the ability to go forward with that. Now we're saying, okay, you can do this, but there's still that element of mistakes that are bound to happen to humans involved. I don't care who it is or what they are or how much money they have, but it's just,
Well, when we looked at our ability as a town to have an employee doing the inspections and follow it up, and we've gone through a long period of time when we've had a, kind of a mess.
correct.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't mean that that's not gonna happen again either. But that's why your issue with regards to the bond and how it will be treated, it's an important consideration. And it should be pretty clearly written about, because you're getting into the steeper slope situation, which requires, a good, solid approach to dealing with it. And it's not gonna get, you start clear cutting on that kind of, excessive, that's type of slope, it's gonna take a while to be able to get the stabilization of what you got left after that.
Yeah, this is like opening a huge can of worms
Yeah.
on what we need to do.
One we had in Winchester, which has gone away because it was on steep slopes
Yeah.
and clearing. I mean, I've been on these boards for 15 years. This ain't the first time, excuse my grammar.
I think that's part of the reason why we went with the 15%.
We did, I
First
mean,
came
that's
up
why
with this.
we really, I've been instrumental in a lot of these things, and a lot of my reasoning at the time was to protect that area. I mean, when we have one of these humongous, and we get it, there's no two
We're
ways
getting
about
we
it.
get
more and
more.
more now.
Yeah, we get, right up where I am, I'm up to, what, a 4 foot under my driveway. And that thing, when we get one of those good storms, within 2 hours, that thing is full. And coming out the other end, you could drive the hydroelectric plant for 50 pounds. I'm serious. The thing shoots out 60, 70 feet,
Yeah.
rolls boulders like this. But it's full of dirt. It's all gone down into Sucker Brook. I mean, that's all, it's an issue, it's a problem. And the topography of Winchester contributes to that, in my opinion.
That's true.
And the lake is further compounds it because you're in a bubble.
That's where it's going.
So, I don't know. I think we gotta be careful. I think we
I
gotta be
think we're
cautious
all on
about
the
what
same
we
page
do
on that.
and what we, and how we approach it. I think we should think about it, deliberate on it. I mean, they've waited this long. I don't think, the world's gonna rotate on its axis right now.
Right.
Not for that anyway. But, that's how I feel. I think it's important that we have that protection for the area, for no other reason.
I think we've got to do a little more thinking about this bond that you brought up. That was very well done. So without any objection from the commission, we should continue this discussion to our next agenda, the 27th, so we can put that on there as continuing.
But we're not introducing any, you said get more information, you just want more time to reflect, right? Not,
Can we
To-
get
you can't
any lawyer
introduce-
information?
No?
no, because the
We
public
can't,
hearing's
because we
closed.
Once you close it.
Yeah, we've closed the public hearing.
You can't
Close it, you
introduce
can't do
any.
it. You can't
So
do
if we vote tonight and then.
No, you can continue it if you want to think about
Right.
it some more. You just can't get any new information now that the public
I
hearing.
don't think that's gonna get us anywhere. I think we need to vote on this tonight and put it behind us and then take the regulations and work on them ourselves. Because I personally would like to hear more, input from Kevin Nelligan on, the bond issue and stuff like that. I mean, what's feasible and.
About whether you can include it as a condition.
Yeah, or even if we can, you know what I'm saying?
You can.
We can. It's
Well, I know we
already-
can, but I mean, how much though? I mean,
Well, it depends on the scope of the project.
Right.
You know, it has to be an estimate that's being presented to us from the applicant in a structured manner. And then we can make the determination about what we feel is the value that has to be put into a bond. And to Willie's point, it's got to be enough to make it substantial.
I agree with that 100%.
Because, the level of the storms that we've been getting has definitely increased in the years. I mean, I've been here 50 years. And so those are the considerations I think we have to have in our determination. So I think what we've got to do is, maybe what you're saying is true. Maybe we should vote it down and then take and bring it up ourselves with regards to this suggestion and come up with a better handle on.
I'm not against the proposal, I'm just,
Yeah.
I want details
Yeah.
more clearly.
Well, I think with a steeper slope we need that in order to deal with it appropriately. And do we know right off the top, I don't right off the top of my head. I'd have to go with a recommendation from an engineering firm that's, that deals with this slope stuff. So, is it the feeling of the commission to make a determination on what we've got now?
We've taken our options away. By closing the hearing,
Yeah.
we have stifled our ability to further, it's obvious, there's a lot more discussion, I think, to be had with, on this. So I would suggest, as you have, that we turn it down without malice, is that the correct phrase?
Without prejudice.
Without prejudice, excuse me. and then come back and put this as a priority, develop our own, using it, we can use this as a basis, I see no shortcoming there, but involve the other elements that we're finding to be difficult. So I think, you know, we're not hurting anybody, but we're just, I think we've cut away some of our options. We gotta, if we're gonna do something, we gotta dig a hole and start doing something different. So, that's my thought.
Okay. John, any thoughts on that?
I agree with that.
You do? Okay.
Not close it.
All right. So we need a motion with regards to this. And I would make a positive motion, and we'll vote it however we want to vote. And I think as a follow-up to this, we should tackle this and go into the business of the bonding and what we need to do with regards to that. And because, you know, we're saying my thought is, we're at a point now, we've got a new enforcement person. He's not certified, is he? No. Is he working on that? He is. All right. What's the expectation of that?
As time allows. You know,
It took me 8 months to get mine.
Yeah. And those things change. I mean, you know, we hire someone, which we have, and he's not certified, he's gonna get the possibility of, you know, he might go for another position somewhere else, or he might get certified and be here for quite a while, I don't know. But in the meantime, we're talking about doing something with regards to this that's gonna anticipate, we've got a good enforcement officer. And, so, I'd say, my opinion is we should vote it down, and then take it and talk about the bonding and have some very clear statement with regards to that, because it's gonna change based on the scope of the proposal that's brought to us. And,
So in order to vote, you wanna vote to approve the application and then vote accordingly.
yes.
Alright, so I'll make a motion to approve the proposed zoning regulation change. Am I in the right one?
22-3.
22-3.
Wrong one.
22.
Make a motion to, approve application 22-03, zoning regulation change, applicant owner Steve Heffer and Hannah Sultan. Proposal modification to section 3D 5C of zoning regulations, other generally applicable development regulations, steep slope regulations.
Okay, and you wanna add in the additional information with regards to this motion?
To modify the zoning regulations, section 3D5C, no disturbance including clear cutting trees and clearing of vegetation or construction of driveway shall be permitted on any slope of 25% or greater, except as may be necessary for public safety or public utilities, unless a special permit is approved and issued, subject to the following conditions. 1, adequate erosion control and drainage measures shall be put in place to avoid erosion and sedimentation during or after construction, and all erosion control and stormwater management measures shall comply with applicable laws and guidelines. And number 2, adequate measures to minimize the clear cutting of trees or the clearing of shrubs and other natural vegetation. Said revised zoning regulations to have an effective date of June 16th, 2022, noting that they are in compliance with the plan of conservation and development.
Who seconded, Craig? All right, any further discussion with regards to the motion? All in favor? A positive would be to approve it, a negative is to disapprove it. So, all in favor? All those opposed? Okay. So what we need to do is follow up with putting that on a future agenda, and then deal with this, the bonding issue, and get into discussion of how that can be adequately described. And, So that's what we'll do. All right.
I never had to do this before.
Great.
ZBA is the next stop for them? I mean, it's,
At this stage, yes.
it's, okay.
CBA just will go and approve it. This was
Well,
just a waste of time.
I've asked to have a meeting. at
They
the
don't
end of the
have
month.
to. I mean,
I know that.
No, but it's just,
no, no, no. We-
it
Yeah, no.
goes down.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I think I can touch it.
Yes, you're allowed to touch it.
No talk.
Before we go on to our next, did you have a question, ma'am?
I have a situation I want to bring to the board
Okay.
in a professional capacity, my professional capacity as a real estate agent.
Mhm.
I need to bring concerns to the board on what I have experienced and my clients have experienced with the planning and zoning office. Quite a serious issue, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
You want me to come up here?
Yeah, sure.
So, my name is Deborah Jablonski. I do live in town, have for 30 years, but I'm here, as I said, in professional capacity as a realtor representing both my clients, seller and the buyer. So the property is at 347 West Wakefield Boulevard, and it's a little cottage, seasonal cottage. The owners are two elderly women, actually. They couldn't be here tonight. So I expect them to come at some point possibly. They're very irate over the situation. My buyer is also concerned, and the situation had escalated to a horrible situation, but between the lawyers and myself and my clients, we were able to solve part of the problem and at least get the property closed on Friday. Not for the lack of, or I should say, cooperation by the planning and zoning office I did not get, unfortunately. So I'll take you to the beginning. Back in April, I was introduced to the ladies and they asked me to sell their cottage or put it up for sale, which I gladly chose to do that. And I noticed shortly thereafter, they have a right-of-way across the street at 348. It's a 10-foot wide to the edge of the water.
So this is the, what, 347 West,
347 is the cottage, 347.
that's West Wakefield?
West Wakefield Boulevard, the right-of-way for their water rights go to 348 West Wakefield Boulevard. The person there recently bought the property, I think within the last year or so, or not even quite a year. But in the interim of me starting with them and to have, the buyer and so forth, a shed appeared on the right-of-way, out of the blue. I asked my sellers if they were notified of any such, permission or so forth. No, the answer was no. So I called the planning and zoning department about around the 21st of April to inquire about, that this has to be removed or what's the situation, somebody's to investigate it. So I spoke with Pam and she informed me of the procedure and was going to notify Mr. Stancock, which was done, and he had gone out into the field, from my understanding, and the finalization of that was that the person was in violation, no permits were pulled, and a violation was going to be issued. So I checked a few days later, maybe the next week, and then I was told, well, there's a process, they get notified, and we have to wait, see if they get notified, So about a couple or a few weeks goes by, I tried calling again. I wanted to check on the status. Was well past the 14 days, if that was to be the case. And nobody could tell me one way or the other. Has the person been notified? Did they get the certified letter? Is there a record in town that it was, and they've been notified, and we're at the point of, what point are we at?
Sure.
I have no answer for that. I was referred to Mr. Stamkos. I did get to leave a voice message. No phone call was returned to me. I waited another week or so and called again. Again, no response. I did talk to Mr. Stamkos, and he had said that he was gonna look into it. We don't know if the card came back. I'm gonna check with Pam and see if, she knows anything about it, and so on and so forth. So we fast forward now to last week, and I call to find out what's going on, because I need to give the lawyers an answer, because my buyer cannot get clear title, and nothing's being done, and I'm trying to understand this. So I call, and the answer is simply this. I called on the 21st and made the
21st
of April to notify them that the shed appeared. A letter was drafted in violation to the party living there on the 25th. The letter was not mailed until the 8th of June, 7.5 weeks later. Happy about that? Oh, no, not at all. Now I have to go back to the attorneys and tell them it's unfortunate that the Planning and Zoning Department didn't do their due diligence, were negligent in their duties for not doing or following up on this, and it's not, I cannot accept any excuses as to why, because I followed up, which is what I do. And a substantial amount of money is now being held from the sellers for a resolve of this. If it's not resolved in a timely fashion, and that shed is not moved, I don't care where it goes, quite frankly, but off the right of way is what is to be expected. And she'll lose that money, and that would not be a good thing, because it's certainly not her fault.
Sure.
So I'm not sure, it's my understanding if there's an encumbrance on a right of way, that nothing gets put on it. And if it's discovered, then it should be an immediate cease and desist order, and someone should be on it right away. Now, I'm looking at the violation letter, and I can give you a copy of it. It's simply not mentioning anything about a right of way. Here's the process of what you can do to remedy, go for a permit, yada, 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 and you're giving the person at 348 all these options that they didn't take initially to get permission. So I'm a little confused about this, because I did provide deeds and statutes and right-of-way and all of that, which is right down the hall over here, that could be readily gotten from April 21st. I feel that should have been done, and it wasn't. So I'm trying to understand how are we going to resolve this and make sure that my client doesn't lose this money and the buyer can get a clear title on the property. Because we're in a very sticky situation here now, and it's not because I didn't do my job. I'm hoping that you can help with this to get it resolved quickly. And I want to have some type of feedback from the board in writing that I can present to both my clients. The buyer had also called the town here several times, and just to inquire not only on this problem at the later time, but earlier she was calling to get some information about permits, what is she allowed to do. They bought the cottage and they want to maybe put some different siding on it, extend a deck or something. So she's looking for general information.
Sure.
And didn't receive phone calls back. So, I'm a resident here for 30 years, I know Winston very well. Charlene knows I know Winston very well. And I don't dislike this town, I love this town. But we have to do better. We gotta do better. And in understand the sellers that own this cottage did wonderful improvements, paid their bills, paid their taxes, they paid off the sewer assessment. They had gotten the entire sewer assessment when they bought it back in 2004. That was a lot of money. They didn't go running. This buyer knows that there's a problem with the right-of-way, and still, by the grace of God, I don't know why, but she loves it, that she didn't say, you know what, we're done. But she didn't.
Okay.
So it's my hope that we're gonna get this resolved quickly. And the clock's ticking.
All right. Well, this is new information to us. I mean, I know there was a enforcement letter that went out. Is that correct?
I can cover it in my staff report if you'd like. I'd rather not get into
Okay, all right. No, that's
Q and
fine.
A.
That's fine. All right, so thank you for making what, your presentation of what we've got to deal with, and let's,
Well, I just don't know what the explanation is as to why a violation letter didn't go out promptly, even with my follow-up phone calls. It wasn't discovered. It was ample time for it to be discovered. 7.5 weeks later is unacceptable for this problem. So could you tell me, just for information and my education, if there's someone encumbering on a right-of-way on somebody's property, isn't there some quicker way to resolve this without going through a 14-day notice? And then you'll do daily fines if it doesn't get resolved. When I said that we were having, this was really, trust me when I say this, when I got this news last week, 3 days before the closing, I did not expect this. So Mr. Bancroft, and I explained to him everything, and his reply was, "I'm very sorry." And we really don't probably want to get the town attorney involved in this. And I said, yeah, I think we do. Well, what do you mean we don't? It's a definite legal issue.
sure.
Now, I don't know if this gentleman is just ignoring a notice now, or did he get it? I have no idea. Nobody follows up with me, which I'm expecting that to happen.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll discuss it a little later on in the meeting, and then,
Okay. I mean, if you like copies of what I have from my email to them and what I sent and the reply and the violation, I have it here.
well, that's something that you should probably, if you have obviously it's a concern, and we don't want that kind of business happening if this is what in fact was going on. So you might want to talk to the town manager,
Okay,
because the people that are hired are not, we don't hire them,
I understand.
so they're working for the town manager.
I understand. Well, I appreciate you telling me that, and so what I'm hearing now is I need to go to the town manager for a resolve?
Well, he certainly is in a position to take action if something has fallen by the wayside and it's not being followed up properly. But he also should be able to give you clarity of what the steps should be taken, and if they haven't been, then somebody's got to correct that.
Okay.
Is it appropriate to ask questions? Can we ask questions?
Go, yeah, sure, go ahead.
So this right-of-way, is it a deeded right-of-way
Yes.
over 348's property?
Yes, it's a deeded right-of-way. There's
And that's
maps going as far back as the 1920s.
And that's to pass and repass?
It's a
Or is it a
right-of-way.
right-of-way for the water?
It's a right-of-way for water pipes to the lake, to bring water to the cottage. Okay, there's a pump there.
I know where the cottage is, so.
Okay, and then the deed says it's 10 feet wide to the edge of the water.
To pass and repass?
So what they can't, with the buyer and the seller who owns my, what they cannot do, is my understanding, they cannot have a dock, they can't linger around and have a picnic, they can't put a blanket down and sun themselves, that kind of stuff. They can walk down to the water, they can jump into the water, they can throw a kayak in the water, they have all the rights of doing that. And that right of way has never been encumbered upon all the years for all these years, for all these years until now. And there's never been an issue.
How big is this shed, by the way?
It's one of those, I think it's a PVC shed. I don't even know, would it be like 5 by, I don't know, it's
Plastic, isn't it?
those PVC,
Size of that table?
That's easy
oh,
to
at
move.
least, might even be a little bigger, and it's tall.
their response?
I don't know. Well, I didn't confront them, but I don't think it's my place to confront them. I do know that the buyer had a conversation just in passing because they've just been getting to know each other, you know, and was told by Mr. Daw, D-A-W-E, that you have a very small right-of-way. And he used, that's what she told me, this is how he explained it to her. So he's in denial, and I'm concerned. He's in denial. I mean, he also owns the cottage across the street, that's one property. So, in all honesty, he has more places for a shed, or parking, storage, or what have you. And 347 has very little of whatever they have. So, but that is a deeded right-of-way, nonetheless, it's legal, and it's very easily to be researched. You can't miss it. And I have done that, so, I would have done that no matter what, because that's what I do for my clients.
Okay. Anybody else have a question?
Is a plastic shed even regulated?
Everything is.
It is? Really? No foundation, just the one that clicks together?
You need a zoning permit, not a building permit.
No
Building
way.
permit for anything larger than 200 square feet, zoning permit for anything that goes on the ground.
'Cause those are,
It's on some type of a platform, I don't know if it's a cement pad, but it's not wood. It's almost looks like it's a permanent base. I'm not
that's a
sure.
problem, yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, well,
Okay, then my next stop is the town manager,
yes.
lucky me.
Well, I mean, we're hearing it, so we're gonna discuss it later on.
Yeah, well, like I said, you know, I tell my clients, the Highland Lake is, as you know, is a lot of things going on with Highland Lake. We have a lot of new people coming in, and a lot of places, you know, a lot of, properties are up for sale. There's properties up for sale right now that shouldn't even be for sale because they're totally out of variance. And they're put on the market illegal. And thank God it's not my listing, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. But anyways, when it comes to the lake, I do, you know, and these people that I work with, they wanna know. I mean, you're dropping $450,000 or $160,000 or $500,000, I mean, that's a lot of money.
Sure.
So I will do, you know, take the extra step to find out what I can with these docks and these decks and these flotation, all these things.
Sure.
Because it's never disclosed. Trust me when I say this, it's never disclosed by the seller. Or the listing agent, for that matter. I'm finding out.
Okay,
So,
all right.
anyways.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you for giving me the time. I appreciate it.
All
And
right.
I'm gonna hope, I truly hope that no one loses their money here and this gets done quickly.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, number 7 on our agenda, PZC 22-4, special permit request, applicant owner Paul Marino, location 680 East Wakefield Boulevard. Proposal is remove accessory building and construct 26 by 22 garage. This is a special permit, so we need to assign this to a upcoming meeting. Now, this has gone through, who's this gone through?
This has gone through wetlands. This has gone through zoning board of appeals. This has gone to the Board of Selectmen who, for a variance to the driveway ordinance.
Yep.
And anything that, if it goes to the Board of Selectmen, it automatically comes to you folks. Because the driveway ordinance allows driveways on slopes up to 15%.
Okay, all right. Okay,
You're acting on the garage or the driveway?
The development activity on slopes exceeding 15%. So he's gonna have to get information from his engineer to, you know, some form of activity is occurring on slopes in excess of 15%. I believe it's the driveway. It's at least the driveway. The garage is demolition. You know, I think that Mr. Marino plans to have his engineer at your June 27th meeting. Or at least a letter, you know, to give you exactly what that percentage is.
Is it appropriate to ask the question on this blueprint before a public hearing?
If you see any discrepancies that you want clarification, you can email them me separately. There shouldn't be too much discussion because it automatically goes for a public hearing.
So we need a motion to put this on the,
To accept it
Yeah.
and,
I'm sorry, I just wanted, is this the building they're talking about taking down?
yes,
Okay.
yep.
this is on East Wakefield
Yeah, I
Boulevard.
recognize that. I thought it was a home.
It is. It's an
Oh, it is a
accessory
home.
dwelling.
Okay.
There's a home in front of it.
Right, so they own both units.
Yep, yep, so you just wanna, so long as you find that the application's complete, then you accept it and you move it to a public hearing.
I got it. I just wasn't sure what building they were taking
I
down.
didn't see a narrative in there either. My bad.
Look at it.
I didn't see a narrative.
That, I think the site plan's supposed to tell you what
Yeah, the
is
site
happening.
plan's got it.
That's right.
I'm just saying, normally we have.
And I'll make note of that and try to get that for you.
All right. So do you have a motion to set up a special permit public hearing for the 27th of June on this?
I make a motion to set up a special permit application on PZ 22-4 at our next meeting, June, what, 24th?
27th.
27th.
Second.
Seconded by John. Any comments, discussion about the motion? All in favor? All right. So that'll be on our 27th. Okay. We've got the approval of minutes, May 23rd, which is in our packets.
I make a motion we approve the minutes of May 23rd
Second.
Seconded by Joy.
as presented.
Any comments, discussion about that? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Communications, Pam?
I don't have any, no.
Okay, staff report?
I had a, visit on Honey Buns for retail, you know, Honey Buns closed 314 Main Street. It's, between Case Avenue and the post office. By one of the principals of the owner entity, initially, the discussion was, to do a smoke shop. But today's discussion, has indicated that it'll be retail, small format, where he would have some, deli meats, some milk, some produce. You know, he's talking about having in the summertime some fruit outside, which would be, you know, a welcome addition. Parking, is, plentiful and meets the, parking requirements of the zoning regulations. So, you know, he's got a few things that I sent him away to just get a little bit more information, sign. You know, we always want the contact information. I sent him with some building permits with his proposed floor plan where he's gonna show, you know, stuff in the aisles so that it's substantiated to be retail, you know, small grocery. It's a simple zoning permit. Once that's provided, it'll be
Okay, good.
pretty readily approved at that point. There's I had gotten a contact from a local resident who is a developer. I want to say that his trade is contractor, general contractor, like he does the carpentry and subs out electrical implement on 10 Bridge Street, the front building of 10 Bridge Street. There's two different parcels. One that was done by Marty Golden is finished. The front building is also known as 10 Bridge Street. So at some point, that address will get changed once, you know, I think it should get changed soon, once we establish where the frontage is, you know, if the front door is on Bridge Street or if it's, you know, Pratt Street. And he didn't reveal, he just wanted to know how difficult the process was, and I said that, you know, any kind of redevelopment is likely to be, you know, met with open arms, and, you know, town here will do whatever we can. And he is a resident and has done stuff before, and so, you know, he was justifiably a little, it's probably the biggest project he's done, but, I'm glad to hear that we have some movement there. 32 Lake Street, there's a wetlands, that's a brewery. We have a wetlands application that'll be reviewed on Wednesday night. They'll come back before you for, the various expansions. They'll need to approve the patio out front as well as a new patio in the back, what he's calling phase 2. He might have seen some newspaper coverage that there's some building permits pending for interior fit out that's not yet been approved because that patio is a necessary egress for, which is exit for fire, as part of that phase 2. So you need that before, you need your subsequent approvals before you can, sign off for zoning for the building permit. There's some, it's not just that's holding it up. It's not just the land use approvals. There's still some back and forth. Even with our new building official, interim building official, we don't have a permanent building official, who, has the modifications made by the architect have not yet given the building official an opportunity to approve or to at least say, to communicate that the approval is only pending land use. There's some other things that still need to be worked out. Not big, just decisions,
How
more or
big,
less.
what's the size of this additional we're talking about?
The patio.
Well, I mean, you're talking patio, I've seen that, because we've talked about
So
this
where the
before.
building jogs in is where the phase 2, where the firewall for the next phase will
On the
end.
street,
You'd have to be standing behind the building.
Yeah.
There's been some piles of soil, if you will, so to the left of that, the building jogs in a little bit,
Right.
and that's the end firewall of phase 2.
And is the patio on the riverside?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
beyond the parking area, or where they kind of
By the
congregate
side
now?
entrance, I think, right?
Well, I mean, I know.
Behind the rear entrance, if you will,
Rear.
yeah. And so the
Yeah, yeah, so
dumpster
it's a little bit
enclosure,
over.
I think
Exactly.
will be moving.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure it's gonna have to. So, there's some tweaking to be done, but it's not just land use, so, but they're getting there.
This has been quite the process, because we've
It
talked
began in
about this.
November, and there were several exchanges, there were several meetings, with all of the staff sitting with, the developer's architect, and seemed to be consensus, going away from the meeting, but then when the revised plans come in, they don't mirror what was discussed, and so then there's still questions, how are you gonna address this, and it's been reviewed by several different building officials, if you will. 127 Main Street I had some phone calls asking me what was going on there, because they saw some backhoes and some movement there. This I've reported to you before. A developer from Foxborough, an investor, I should say, from Foxborough, Mass, had bought it, and this is what he does. He's a real estate investor, and he had indicated that he was planning on sprucing up the landscape. That's all I'm sure he's doing, is sprucing up the landscape, swapping out, dead decaying mulch and putting in some fresh plantings to draw in a good tenant. 8 South Main Street was closing today. It had switched hands to some folks from Staten Island, earlier.
What is he?
8, so Primo.
Yeah.
The Primo building, and again, she's found it was supposed to close today. She'll be moving forward. It's a simple zoning permit, restaurant to restaurant. And so, as soon as she can get in and get her building plan, she's gonna make some upgrades to the interior. I think they had some pipe spur, so, that's gotta get fixed. But this is a woman who's been looking to develop in our town, to relocate in our town for several years. And so it was closing today. I didn't verify that with the land records, but I'm assuming that it did. And then 58 Main Street, there was I think I've reported on this before, that's where Live at Home is there, Pause and Reflect, and then there's the new smoothie shop that will be going in there. And we have a zoning permit. What we were trying to do was confirm what was going on upstairs, because that is sometimes an opportunity for staff to make sure that the town's records correspond with whatever changes may have been made, permits or not. So we're just making sure that, you know, our residents are kept safe and inspections and permits are done appropriately. So,
Oh, can I, before, what's going on with Capital Products? I mean, it's all blocked off in the roof and everybody's up there, and, do we know? I mean, it may not have anything to do with us, but I'm just curious if, oh,
Who's doing what there?
I'll have to,
Well,
they
they've
have
got
the-
windows out.
Oh, yeah, they got windows out and the big,
Looks like a roof.
oh, you're talking about Joe Miller's building?
Capital Products?
Yeah, we have a siding permit.
Oh, okay.
You know, there's something on the roof, so I can see it from here.
So, you know, but it kind of leads into enforcement discussion. Are we gonna go after him and remind him he needs building permits? After a given amount of time, yes, we are. We're gonna do it tomorrow? No, we're not. We're just not, because we presume that he's gonna be coming in. You know, it's too obvious not to. When it comes to enforcement, and Troy, you can confirm this as a former enforcement officer. I'm the only one in this area that knows how to do a title search. When you do enforcement, all lien holders need to be included in the noticing. And it also needs to, your file needs to look like this before that letter goes out. And what does this mean? This means you need your evidence included in the file, so that when the person, you know, the person who you're sending a violation notice to, the first thing they're gonna do when they sign that green card is likely run down and, what are you talking about? You wanna be able to produce it. So that doesn't always happen as quickly as people wish it would. And we're gonna prioritize some of these zoning violations. A shed is so commonplace, it's not something that is an emergency to us. I understand it's an emergency to a realtor and representing both the buyer and seller that might want to, you know, expedite a closing and have it be problem-free. Unfortunately, even issuing a zoning violation may not calm her issue of title, because we don't have a survey on it. That 10-foot, if you were to look at the property, for all we know, what people often consider or perceive as the boundary lines aren't always the case. So you could have, you know, vegetative buffer, and, you know, I've always mowed that side and you've always mowed that side, and we assume that that's a property line. Then lo and behold, you get the survey and it's not. So for all we know, they're 10-foot right of way, and that's provided that the easement language, and I appreciate when, you know, we're provided with as much evidence, but we still have to do it ourselves. We still have to research it ourselves, and the survey may or may not show exactly where that 10-foot, so it may not even, our enforcement order may not, it may take a year, it may take a couple years, because if it's gonna take 6 months for them to get a survey, we're not going to be sending the file to Kevin Nelligan to litigate for a shed. We're gonna trust that we're gonna, you know, the homeowner is likely to say, okay, well, either they're gonna take it down, which would obviously be ideal, and by the way, this is a new property owners. Welcome to the lake. Here, you know, the rules are what they are. So this isn't someone who's been up there a long time and has the history and the knowledge to know that that it's a very regulated area and everything you do requires a permit. These are new people who've owned it less than a year. Hopefully they just didn't know and they'll take it down. But if they choose not to, and they instead tell the enforcement officer that they're, okay, well, I'll get a survey then, and I'll go through whatever I have to go through, Inland Wetlands, Zoning Board of Appeals. You're gonna wait as the enforcement officer. You're gonna trust and verify that the surveyor was retained, and then you're gonna wait 6 months for a survey to be completed, and then you're gonna wait several more months for the applicant to make its way through the process. So, you know,
But it's at least been notified that there's a question.
Yeah, as soon as, but I mean, and this is where, you know, there's a lot. I mean, you know, I was gone for 2 days, Thursday and Friday. I came back, there were 88 phone calls that were there. Literally 88, because I was like, okay, where do I start? So, and that's, you know, no excuses, just what it is, you know.
No, but I understand that, you know, short, enforcement takes a while.
It does.
Prepare, but he's now at least aware that there's a question floating around.
The homeowner, yeah.
The,
But
whoever
there's,
put the shed up. on the
yep,
right
I mean,
of way.
and we have this, so you know from your service on Board of Assessment Appeals, I keep singling out Troy, but you're a good reference point, and, you know, the assessor checks the Realtor.com listings every morning, and whatever she finds, she often adds, she's gonna grab that value for the town. So you're paying taxes on everything you have, whether it's legal, permitted, inspected, or not. You're paying taxes. That's up to you to argue, well, why should I pay taxes? I didn't pull any permits. Well, you know, you should have. So, and she does notify us, the building official when we had one, and myself and Michael, that, okay, well, and then we pick and choose, you know, not pick and choose, we work through them. Someone who has added an addition is getting quicker abatement orders, building department, you know, than a shed. It's just, there's no shortage of,
Did he go out and physically go to the property and knock on the person's door?
no.
Okay, so when I was zoning officer,
You'd make phone calls and do that
I
kind of
would
thing.
go to the people's house.
A friendly
and-
contact.
Yeah, because I would have to get that file to do what he has to do.
He took pictures, so,
Yeah.
you're.
But I would go there, and
Yeah.
99% of the time, if you went up there and you said, listen, I'm the zoning officer for the town, you have a shed that's in a right of way that's not even permitted, you need to remove it because your neighbor is trying to sell their property, and they cannot sell this property with that shed there. If you want to move the shed onto your property, and we'll take care of it afterwards, so it's off the right of way, so these people can get their stuff done, it'll work easier on you. I will be easier on you if you, unless you avoid that. That's how I handled it. Because if you talk to people one-on-one, 90% of the time, they're
You
gonna
get
say,
compliance.
I'll move that shed tomorrow for you. And then that problem goes away, and then you still gotta deal with the problem because it's unpermitted shed, and you advise the guy how to go through it. In order to fight it legally, which everybody gets a big problem with, they think everything has to be legal today, you can get around a lot of stuff, but you do need that file, because the lawyer's gonna tell you, I want pictures, I want
Everything's gotta be
times, I
documented.
want everything documented that you could do with the kitchen sink for a case that's gonna go to court, and that's gonna be 2 years from now. So that's why I always tried to handle it, and maybe you wanna talk to Mike, you know, maybe if he physically talks to the person
He
and tries to resolve
He
it
does that,
without
where we
having a
can
file.
get phone calls, you know, someone's got a couch on the sidewalk, it's a lot faster to call them, try to get a hold of them, hey, we don't have garbage pickup, you gotta get rid of that couch. You know, those kinds of things, you know. It's not to
I mean,
say that,
this could
yeah.
this could come back into town, because this
Yeah,
could be a
but
problem
No.
with the.
Troy, I'm in the business for a long time. They should have never closed on a property with money in escrow and not cleared
Thinking
title.
the exact same.
Right.
This was pushed just for everybody to get their commission. Come on. This should have been closed, hey, I'll buy it as is, with no escrow, and I'll deal with it, or let's delay it, but if you put time restraint on the escrow and the title, it's complete nonsense. Whatever they did, it was pushed out of whatever reason. I'm not defending anybody,
Right.
you know.
Well, I'm just saying,
But
that
I'm
most of the
talking-
things
I'm
can be
talking-
resolved like that,
I'm
I mean,
talking
if you talk to people.
Simply from a real estate transaction, this is what I do.
Right.
And I'm telling you, this wasn't the right thing to do.
But
I mean,
things
I
shouldn't
don't
take
know
5.5
about that.
weeks. There's,
No.
you know, you know, I could sit here and tell you stories for hours of things that are pending that, you know.
Oh, I'm sure you're busy.
There's a cottage up there on Shore Drive that was built only through a variance, with a limit of 500 square feet. Well, guess what's been finished? Guess how many phone calls we get? when is an abatement order gonna be issued? You know,
Okay, we're not gonna
No.
resolve all these.
No, we don't have time to be serious.
so.
But thank you for filling in the voids of, you know, the things that we didn't see, and we're not part of all that stuff.
I'm sorry that, you know,
I saw a sign in the building next to Gas Man about some deli or something coming in there.
787 Main Street you're talking about?
Yeah, the one to the right, yeah.
The one over by the library?
No,
No.
gas man,
The
going
gas
towards, Ledgebrook, on the left.
Yeah, not that I've
Oh,
heard.
What's going on with the rooster?
They are, by design, closed for a while so that word gets out it's different.
Bloody Marys in town.
That's
You
what
know,
they're doing.
yeah, you don't wanna,
Open right up and have everybody come right back.
yeah, I don't think it was like Cheers. So, I think that they're, you know, they're really cleaning up the place and, but they're still
They
going.
were gung ho and then all of a
And,
sudden,
well, and I think they might be working with an architect, I think they're exploring, like, they wanna add a fireplace and like a glass area off to the north. So they may need a variance, like, so they're working on getting plans updated and they're okay. They're okay with there being some time between the former establishment and the new establishment, so whoever might, you know, that I think they're gonna, I won't say they're gonna be necessarily a family restaurant, but more family friendly than, I wouldn't say the Rooster was.
it's hard to relocate Winston people, just so you know. They're not bears.
You know, but people find new places to hang out,
Picnic
you know.
basket for 10 months, it's not gonna make it.
They're, you know, they really cleaned it up, and you know, I think they're, you know, ordering stuff like they didn't go anywhere. They're still definitely,
Okay.
you know, permanently in Winchester.
All right, do you have anything more in your report? Okay. Any other business? Okay, adjournment then.
Motion to adjourn.
John? you got a
Second.
Second, all in favor? Thank you.
Ay, ay, ay.